I never thought I'd be one of those retirement home people. Growing up in a time when families took care of their own, the idea felt like failure. But life has its own plans, doesn't it? 1 year ago, I stood in the doorway of room 217 at Magnolia Gardens. My children had already arranged my few belongings. My reading chair by the window, photographs on the dresser, my late wife's quilt folded neatly at the foot of the bed. The room smelled of fresh paint and institutional cleanliness. I remember thinking, so this is where I'll die. That thought terrified me. Maybe it terrifies you too. What happens when we surrender our independence? When our homes of 40 years become too much to manage? When our children start speaking about us in hushed tones? But what I discovered over the next year surprised me. It changed everything I thought I knew about growing older. Today I'm going to share 7 profound lessons I've learned about aging, lessons that no doctor or self-help book prepared me for. Lessons that have actually made this chapter of my life richer than I could have imagined. And I especially want you to stay until the end, because my 7th lesson is the one that transformed my understanding of what these final years are truly for. A revelation that came to me just last month, and one that I believe could change how you view your own journey forward. Lesson number 1, isolation isn't just loneliness, it's dangerous. The first thing that hit me at Magnolia Gardens wasn't the food or the schedules, it was the noise. After living alone for 7 years since Margaret passed, I'd grown used to silence. Suddenly, there were voices everywhere. Staff members checking in, residents chatting in the halls, televisions playing in common areas. I was irritated. I retreated to my room, determined to maintain my solitude. That's when I met Frank, across the hall. Frank hadn't left his room in 3 weeks except for meals. I had a full life, he told me, over reluctant checkers. Executive at Ford for 32 years. Now my kids are busy, friends are gone. What's the point of talking to strangers? I recognized myself in his words. What I didn't know then was how dangerous our isolation had become. The nurse explained it to me simply. Your brain needs social connection like your lungs need air. Without it, everything deteriorates faster. Memory, physical health, even your immune system. She showed me research that loneliness increases dementia risk by 50% and can be as harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes daily. Those statistics shook me. So I made myself sit in the common room for 1 hour each day. Just sit. I didn't have to talk. The first week was uncomfortable. By the 3rd week, I knew everyone's name. By the 2nd month, I was organizing the weekly poker game. The change wasn't just emotional. My blood pressure improved. I slept better. The constant ache in my joints seemed less intrusive when I was laughing with Betty about her wild stories from the 1960s. My simple solution became a daily practice of connection. Join one group activity daily, even if just to listen, learn one new name each day, share one story from your past weekly. I wonder, how many days do you go without meaningful conversation? How many meals eaten alone? If you're feeling the weight of isolation, type connection in the comments. Let's start talking about this silent epidemic among us. If you are still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 1 below to let me know you are here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Lesson number 2, your body whispers before it screams. I've always been stoic about pain. Part of aging, I'd tell myself as my knees creaked climbing stairs or my back tightened after gardening. At Magnolia, I met Eleanor, 87, who still does modified yoga every morning. Arthur, she said, using my full name as she always does, your body doesn't just break one day. It sends thousands of whispers first, which most people ignore until the whisper becomes a scream. Eleanor had been a nurse for 42 years. She showed me her gentle morning routine, simple stretches, breathing exercises, and mindful movements that took just 15 minutes. The science is clear, she explained. Movement lubricates joints, stretching maintains flexibility, proper breathing reduces inflammation, but most importantly, these practices help you listen to your body's whispers. I was skeptical but tried her routine. The first week was uncomfortable. By the 3rd week, I noticed I could reach the top shelf without wincing. After 2 months, I canceled the knee surgery I'd scheduled. What amazes me is how our medical system often jumps to dramatic interventions when simple, consistent practices could prevent many issues. Dr. Wilson, who visits our facility, confirmed this. The body has remarkable healing capabilities when we support it correctly and early. My approach now includes 5 minutes of gentle stretching every morning, walking 10 minutes after each meal, even if just down the hallway and back, drinking water before I feel thirsty, addressing any new pain or discomfort immediately, not months later. These aren't revolutionary steps, but they've revolutionized how I live in this aging body. The key is consistency and awareness, treating small signals with respect rather than dismissing them. Have you been ignoring your body's whispers? Maybe it's that stiffness when you first stand up, or the fatigue that seems heavier lately, or the heartburn that's becoming more frequent. Your body is trying to communicate. Are you listening? If you've experienced your body sending signals you wish you'd heeded sooner, type "listening" now in the comments. It's never too late to start paying attention. Lesson number 3. Purpose doesn't retire when you do. 3 months into my stay, I hit a wall. The novelty had worn off. The days blurred together. Tuesday became Thursday, became Sunday, with nothing to distinguish them. That's when I met Howard. Howard arrived at Magnolia with 14 boxes of photography equipment. At 91, his hands shook slightly, but his eyes were sharp behind thick glasses. Within a week, he'd converted the unused sewing room into a makeshift darkroom and photo studio. They told me to leave my passion behind, he chuckled. Said I was too old, that the chemicals weren't good for someone my age. But what's not good for me is feeling useless. Howard had been photographing birds for 60 years. Now he was teaching residents to use simple digital cameras, organizing weekly nature walks, and creating a photographic history of Magnolia Gardens and its inhabitants. I watched him come alive when sharing his knowledge. The research backs his instinct. Studies show that having purpose increases lifespan by as much as 7 years and significantly reduces Alzheimer's risk. This made me think, what had I left behind? For 42 years, I'd been an engineer. I solved problems. I designed solutions. That didn't have to end because I'd moved to Magnolia. I started small. I fixed Mrs. Peterson's reading lamp. I reorganized the library's shelving system for better accessibility. I created a map of the grounds with resting spots clearly marked for those with mobility issues. Now I'm working with management to redesign common spaces for better sound absorption, a major issue for those with hearing aids. I have purpose again. I have problems to solve. The transformation was profound. My sleep improved. The mild depression that had shadowed me lifted. Even my digestion got better. Something the doctors hadn't connected to mental well-being. Your purpose doesn't need to be grand. It might be mentoring young people in your former profession via video calls, organizing family photos and recording the stories behind them, growing herbs on a windowsill and sharing them with neighbors, writing letters to local leaders about issues affecting seniors. What matters is that it matters to you. What talent or knowledge are you letting go unused? What problems could you still help solve? If you've found purpose after retirement, share what gives your days meaning in the comments below. Lesson number 4. Laughter is your mind's best medicine. 6 months into my retirement home journey, I noticed something troubling. The happiest residents weren't necessarily the healthiest or wealthiest. They weren't those with the most visitors or the fewest health problems. The common denominator was simpler. They laughed often. Take Mildred. At 94, she uses an oxygen tank and can barely see. Her arthritis has twisted her once nimble pianist's fingers, yet she's the heart of Magnolia Gardens because of her irreverent sense of humor. I've outlived 3 husbands and 2 doctors who told me I had 6 months to live, she told me during bingo. I figure either I'm terrible at following directions or laughter really is good medicine. When Mildred laughed, her whole body engaged in the act, eyes crinkling, shoulders shaking, oxygen tubes quivering. It was contagious. The science behind humor's power is compelling. Laughter triggers endorphin release, reduces stress hormones like cortisol, and even temporarily reduces pain. For our aging brains, it's especially valuable. One, humor engages multiple brain regions simultaneously, creating new neural connections. Neurologist Dr. Lee visits monthly and explains it simply. Laughter is like a full brain workout that also soothes inflammation. It's both exercise and meditation in one act. I realized I'd grown too serious with age. Somewhere along the way, I'd started collecting grievances instead of moments of joy, so I made changes. I started watching the comedy shows I'd enjoyed in my younger years. I kept a daily absurdity journal, noting the funny, strange moments that occurred. I sat with different people at meals, especially those who smiled easily. I learned to laugh at my own senior moments instead of feeling frustrated. The most powerful technique was also the simplest, the laugh anyway approach. When something frustrating happened, I would give myself 5 seconds to acknowledge the frustration, then deliberately find the humor in the situation. The drop pill dispenser that scattered my medications across the floor. Well, at least I'm getting my bending exercise for the day. Has laughter helped you through difficult times? Do you find it harder or easier to laugh as you've aged? Share your thoughts in the comments. Or better yet, share something that made you laugh recently. Lesson number 5. Your memories need active preservation. 7 months into my stay, I noticed something that chilled me. In our memory care wing, family members would visit with old photographs, hoping to spark recognition. Remember this trip to Yellowstone, Dad? Here's your wedding day, Mom. The blank looks on some faces haunted me. It wasn't just the disease taking memories, it was that many memories had never been properly preserved or revisited in the first place. Memory isn't passive storage, she explained. It's an active process of reconstruction. Each time we recall a memory, we essentially recreate it. Without that regular reconstruction, memories fade or change. The science confirms this. Our brains don't work like digital recordings, but more like storytellers, reweaving memories each time we access them. The memories we revisit regularly grow stronger. Those we neglect fade away. I befriended Sophia, a retired literature professor, whose mind remained razor-sharp at 88. Her room was modest except for one striking feature, a hand-drawn memory map covering an entire wall, a sprawling timeline with photos, ticket stubs, pressed flowers, and notes connecting key life events. First, I created a simple timeline with major life events, adding details each day as they came to me. I recorded voice notes describing sensory details of important memories, how the air smelled the day my daughter was born, the exact shade of blue of our first family car. With Sophia's guidance, I began actively preserving what mattered. Alarmed, I realized I'd done little to preserve my own. The details of my honeymoon with Margaret were growing fuzzy. I struggled to recall the sound of my mother's laugh, though she'd been gone only 20 years. I practiced what neurologists call spaced retrieval, regularly revisiting important memories at increasing intervals, strengthening them each time. I organized monthly reminiscence sessions with other residents, where we choose a theme like first jobs or childhood holidays and share detailed accounts. Most importantly, I learned to engage all senses in memory preservation. When recalling my wedding day, I wouldn't just visualize it, but actively recall the taste of the cake, the feel of Margaret's hand, the sound of our first dance song. For memories already growing dim, I reached out to old friends and family members, comparing recollections and filling in gaps. Each conversation brought back details I thought were lost forever. Lesson number 6, dignity requires fierce protection. 8 months in, I experienced something that changed how I approach healthcare forever. During a routine doctor's visit, the physician spoke about me to the nurse as if I wasn't there. Mr. Anderson's blood pressure is still elevated. We'll increase his lisinopril and remind him about sodium restriction. These elderly patients never listen the first time. I sat there invisible in plain sight. The doctor spoke over my head to my adult daughter who had accompanied me, asking her questions about my symptoms that I could have answered myself. That evening I met with Gladys, a 90-year-old former civil rights attorney who still carried herself with unmistakable authority despite her small frame and walker. "They count on our silence," she told me over tea. "They expect gratitude for basic care. They mistake our politeness for permission to diminish us." Gladys shared her approach: clear boundaries, direct communication, and what she called strategic assertiveness. She showed me studies revealing that patients who advocate for themselves receive better care and have better outcomes. The medical establishment often infantilizes older adults, she explained. It's subtle but pervasive. and it affects the care we receive in measurable ways. With Gladys's coaching, I developed new habits. I prepare written questions before appointments. I bring a small notebook and take notes. I politely but firmly redirect conversation to me. If a doctor speaks primarily to my companion, I use phrases like "I've noticed" and "I've observed" rather than "I feel" when describing symptoms. I ask for clarification until I genuinely understand. The change in my healthcare experience has been dramatic. Not only do I receive more thorough explanations, but I've noticed doctors spending more time with me and considering my input more carefully. This extends beyond medical settings. I've applied these principles to interactions with financial advisors, service providers, and even family members who occasionally slip into speaking to me as if my age has diminished my capacity. Protecting your dignity isn't selfish. It's essential to receiving proper care and maintaining your sense of self. Have you felt invisible or diminished because of your age? How did you respond? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else find their voice. If you are still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you are here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Lesson number 7. The final chapter is about legacy, not longevity. This last lesson came to me unexpectedly, during what could have been one of my darkest moments at Magnolia Gardens. 10 months into my stay, my roommate Chester passed away peacefully in his sleep. We had grown close, sharing early morning coffee and watching baseball games together. His absence left a physical ache. At his memorial service in our common room, something remarkable happened. His grandchildren shared stories I'd never heard about Chester's time as a civil rights activist in the 1960s, about the scholarship fund he'd quietly maintained for 30 years helping young people from his hometown attend college, about letters he'd written to family members to be opened after his death. Chester, it seemed, had been preparing his legacy for years. He hadn't focused on extending his life, but on ensuring what he valued would continue beyond him. That evening, I met Chester's daughter Catherine as she cleared his belongings. She handed me an envelope with my name on it, a letter Chester had written, sharing what our friendship had meant to him. It contained wisdom I'll treasure forever. The hardest truth of aging, he'd written, is accepting that our time grows short. The greatest peace comes from knowing that what truly matters will outlive us. Research supports this wisdom. Studies show that people who develop a sense of generativity, concern for establishing and guiding the next generation, experience greater well-being in later life than those focused primarily on their own needs. This insight transformed my approach to my remaining years. I began recording video messages for my grandchildren, sharing not just family stories but the values and lessons that shaped me, mentoring young engineers through an online program, documenting the practical knowledge I've gained through decades of experience, writing letters to loved ones, expressing what they've meant to me, creating a specific giving plan for the modest savings I've accumulated. The focus shifted from how many years I have left to what those years can mean, not just to me but to others. This perspective has lightened the fear of death that once weighed heavily. There's profound peace in knowing that parts of who I am and what I value will continue. Have you thought about your legacy beyond material possessions? What wisdom, values, or traditions do you most want to pass forward? Share your thoughts in the comments. This conversation might be the most important one we have. When I first walked into Magnolia Gardens, I thought I was entering the last waiting room of my life. Instead, I found a classroom where the lessons were profound and unexpected. I learned that connection isn't a luxury, but a necessity, that our bodies whisper long before they scream, that purpose doesn't retire when we do, that laughter heals what medicine cannot reach, that memories must be actively preserved, that dignity requires protection, and finally, that our legacy matters more than our longevity. These lessons haven't made aging easy, but they've made it meaningful. They've transformed what could have been years of decline into a period of unexpected growth. I share these insights not as an expert on aging, but as a fellow traveler on this journey we're all taking. Your path will differ from mine. Your lessons will be your own, but perhaps my experience can offer some light for the road ahead. I'd be honored to hear your reflections. What challenges have you faced in your aging journey? What wisdom have you gathered? Your comment might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. If this conversation has brought you value, please consider subscribing to our channel. Each like and share helps us reach more people who might benefit from these discussions about life's final chapters. Chapters that can be among our most meaningful if we approach them with awareness and intention. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, remember that every day at every age holds possibility.